Hello everybody and welcome to our kitchen. I am Brock Pickin and my fiancée Marta, soon to be Marta Pickin, is at work, and we are the hosts of Fit for Two TV, the internet's only show dedicated to health. And when I come back, we're going to talk about carbohydrates. Hello everybody and welcome back. So as I mentioned before, today we are talking about carbohydrates, and they are one of the three macronutrients. We've already done a protein episode, we've already done a fat episode, and now we're talking carbs. So for the last number of years there's been a lot of bad press about carbohydrates. There was a specific diet that came out that really pushed no carbohydrates in your diet, and that unfortunately led to a lot of bad press. Let me say it here, I'm going to say it once. You need carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are good. Your brain alone needs 60 grams of carbohydrates just to function over the course of the day. So if you're wondering what that might look like, we have 2 sweet potatoes here. That's about the equivalent of 60 grams of carbohydrates. We've also got kamut pasta. 1 cup of kamut pasta is about 60 grams. Even apples. These are about 20 grams each. So 3 apples is about your 60 grams. So that's just for brain function. That's not for muscles. That's not for other functions in your body. So it's very, very important for you to be consuming carbohydrate. Having said that, let's get a little bit into exactly what carbohydrate does in the body. Plain and simple, carbohydrate is used for energy. So carbs give you energy. Fat can be used as energy as well, but carbohydrate is a very readily available source. It's easier to use as energy as opposed to fat. Now, having said that, there are good carbs and there are bad carbs. High sugar carbohydrates like white bread, bagels, that sort of thing, that enter your bloodstream quickly are more of the bad carbohydrates. Carbohydrates that are a slower release, such as we've got some millet, we've got some other flours, those sort of things that enter the bloodstream a little bit slower. Those are good carbohydrates. So just to get a little bit more into that in detail, if you've ever heard of a glycemic index, a glycemic index gives a number rating to carbohydrates, and that will basically tell you how quickly carbohydrate enters your bloodstream. So things that are very high on the glycemic index, like table sugar, that is close to about 100, it's on a scale of 100. The higher on the scale, the faster that enters your blood sugar, or enters your bloodstream as blood sugar. The lower on the glycemic index, such as fruit and vegetables, those are better for your body. So to use an analogy to help you understand how this happens, this might sound a little strange, but if you picture a baggage handler taking luggage off of a conveyor belt as it's coming off of an airplane. The luggage on the conveyor belt is sugar, and the baggage handler is insulin. Now, I'm going to talk about insulin in just a minute or two, but insulin is a very important hormone that regulates where energy goes or where carbohydrate is stored. So, if you have a ton of bags coming down that conveyor belt really, really quickly, you can imagine what's going to happen to that poor man or woman who is trying to put the bags in the right spots. You're going to end up with a spillover. You're going to end up with luggage all over the place. Great big mess. Whereas if you have a bag of luggage coming down the conveyor belt every 30 seconds, that man or woman is able to handle that suitcase a lot easier. So basically what I'm trying to say is that if you are consuming high glycemic foods, sugar, that's like giving that great big rush of sugar into the bloodstream, and your insulin cannot handle that much carbohydrate all at once. Whereas something lower glycemic gives that nice slow release and your body is able to utilize it. So Insulin is a hormone that stores carbohydrate and it regulates energy in the body. So, that nice slow release, your insulin is able to do what it needs to do with the carbohydrate effectively. Either store it in muscles, store it in the liver, or use it as energy. If you have too much sugar all at once, your insulin can't handle it, and then it gets stored as fat. So, just to get a little bit more into what we have in terms of high versus low glycemic, we've got some black beans. Black beans are very low glycemic. Something else that will affect the rate of absorption of carbohydrates into your bloodstream is fiber. So if you are consuming high fiber foods, that will help reduce the rate at which carbohydrates enter your bloodstream. So we've got beans, we've got sweet potatoes, anything fruit or vegetable, almost anything fruit or vegetable, are very low glycemic, meaning they're very good for you. Things like white rice, potatoes, those are more towards the higher end of the scale. Actually, sweet potatoes are a little bit more in the middle of the scale. Anything that is whole wheat, we've got some buckwheat here, any of our wheat flours or other grain flours, those are more in the middle to lower scale. So those are all good foods to be consuming. Your white breads, your white pastas, your cookies, your candies, pastries, all of those sort of things, those are high in the glycemic index, meaning that they are not nearly as good for you. So I think I've covered most everything here. Pastas as well. If you get a good whole wheat or kamut pasta, those are very low glycemic. The white pastas are not nearly as good for you. You should have your carbohydrates make up anywhere from 50 up to as high as 75% of your total energy intake. And if you want to learn a little bit more how to calculate that, I can post that in that article as well. So, before I wrap up, if there's one thing that you can take away from what I've talked about here, it's that carbohydrates directly influence your insulin. And if you are able to manage your insulin, you are going to become much more efficient at burning fat and utilizing energy in your body. So, there are 4 ways that you can manage insulin in your body. One is to consume more of the low glycemic or good carbs. 2 is to avoid the high glycemic or the bad carbohydrates. 3 is to get regular exercise. And the 4th one is to eat meals on a regular basis. If you go long periods without eating, then you get that blood sugar drop, and then the next time you eat, you get an insulin spike. And you end up with that sort of up and down crash spike effect. So if you are to consume food on a fairly regular basis, every 2 or 3 hours, that will help to regulate your insulin as well. So, feedback question is, what is your favorite type of carbohydrate? From Brock and Marta, who's at work, thank you for watching Fit for 2 TV, the internet's only show dedicated to health.